Hello, and welcome to the second day of the NISM SRC seminar, Rebooting Financial Regulation, Ways and Means. I'm glad that you could join us for the second day of this exciting conference. So the format for today will be the same as for yesterday. We'll have two sessions. Each session will last an hour and a half. Each speaker will have 45 minutes in each session. The speakers will talk for up to half an hour approximately to present their ideas without any questions. And then after the speaker is done, we'll have questions for the remainder of the time. Please enter the questions into the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Then the session chair will read the questions out and maybe combine relevant questions together so that we could have a good discussion. But please do use the Q&A box. You know, that's a very interesting comment yesterday. As you know, part of the point of having a conference is to engage with the people who are attending. So please do use the Q&A box. And I think with that done, I will pass over to Dr. Latha Chari from NISM to chair the first session.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin, for that introduction. And of course, warm welcome to all the participants and the dignitaries who have assembled here for the day 2 session on rebooting financial regulation ways and means. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the speaker of the day, first session, and first speaker, Shri Anant Banwarji. He took charge as the full-time member of the Securities and Exchange Board of India in August 2018. Currently, Dr. Barua looks after the Market Intermediaries Regulation and Supervision Department, Department of Debt and Hybrid Securities, Enforcement Department, Legal Affairs Department, Inquiry and Adjudication Department, and the Board Cell. Prior to this assignment, he was serving as the Executive Director at SEBI. During his tenure, he has actually handled various departments in SEBI, such as Investment Management, Department of Debt and Hybrid Securities, Corporate Finance Department, Legal Affairs and Enforcement Department. He was also instrumental in developing a framework for issue and listing of debt securities, the alternate investment funds, municipal bonds, REITs, InvITs, etc. Dr. Barua is a commerce graduate and also has an LLB, both from the University of Delhi. Warm welcome to Dr. Barua. Request you to take over the session and deliver your session on balancing objectives of financial regulation, development, regulation, and investor protection. Over to Dr. Barua.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start with 2 caveats. One is that here I am speaking in this seminar, and whatever views I express is my personal, should not be attributed to the organization I represent. Second thing, I'm very grateful for addressing me as a Dr. Barua. Actually, I'm not a doctor as such. I don't hold any PhD and all. So I wanted to make it clear. But thanks for giving me that title. And I'm at the outset very grateful for inviting me to speak and in this program, which is being organized by reputed organizations like LSC and NISM. And actually, this presentation is like my thought and my experience, which I have gained while working in the regulatory bodies. And I have taken a few examples. And in the last, I've given my conclusions to justify, or you can say in support of my conclusions. So these examples I will go through, and I will share with all the participants. No. Actually, as you know, these presentations will not be complete if I do not give a background how the new framework for regulations, especially the independent regulators, which was ushered in India. Actually, whoever is, especially the economists, and I think they may be aware, India embarked on reform in 1991. That was pursuant to, there were some economic issues which India faced, especially foreign exchange crisis and other things. And India had to also mortgage gold with the Bank of England for its import, for its oil and other things. And it was felt by at that time, our predecessors to tackle with this problem. It is not a situations where we can go for some temporary accommodations and all. This crisis involves and requires a long-lasting changes, which the economy and all the government or sectors or that has to be changed and ushered in. And therefore, as we know, the great economic reform was ushered in 1991. And in some cases, we call it liberalization, privatization, and deregulations. And one of the things which was felt that as far as, because earlier, everything was in the control regime, and the state was playing a dominant role in resource mobilizations and for development, for planning and other things. And it was felt that this government's role alone, even though India, we said it is a mixed economy, but public sector was playing a dominant role. And therefore, it was felt that there is a need for some shift. And accordingly, if you see the regulations which was prevailing before, especially for raising capital, there was a body known as Control of Capital Issues, and raising of capital was totally restricted. And it was a merit regulations. They used to go into the merit whether company can raise capital and what time, what instrument, how much. All thing was heavily regulated. And the secondary market was under the regulations of a stock exchange divisions under the Ministry of Finance. And as far as the mutual fund was concerned, there was only mainly Unit Trust of India. And subsequently, Reserve Bank of India, they issued guidelines for public sector banks to issue the mutual fund units to the public. That is a brief account. And then in the year 1993, the economic survey stated that the process of reforms needs to be deepened to bring about speedier conclusions of transactions, greater transparency in operations, improved services to investors, and greater investor protections, while at the same time encouraging corporate sector to raise resources directly from market on an increasing scale. Major modernization of the stock exchanges to bring them in the line with world standards in terms of transparency and reliability is also necessary if foreign capital is to be attracted on any significant role. That was the thing. And subsequently, what has happened? This new regime will require the following. With initiation of process of liberalizations, the government withdrew from many activities. An entry of the corporate sector necessitated certain measures to boost investor competence and to safeguard public interest. A market-based economy needs to be regulated in order to ensure a level playing field to all and also to safeguard the larger public and national interest. Increasing complexities and advancement of technology required handling of the issues by an expert. The public interest is best served by insulating decision-making in certain issues from political interference. And therefore, if you see post to 1991, there was a host of new, for many sectors, the regulators were brought in. And the SEBI was the first regulator which was on the scene. And SEBI was established under a separate statute, and all independence was sought to be conferred on SEBI. And at the same time, there was a provisions for accountability also. And these are the mandate, regulatory and development. And it was expected that the market will play a greater role in resource mobilization and allocation. The regime which was ushered in was that of the Office of Controller of Capital Issue was repealed, and SEBI was brought in. And that repealing ordinance says hereinafter, any corporate in India will be free to issue capital only with the disclosure as may be specified by the SEBI. And as you said, seeing one of the preamble of SEBI Act says development, regulations, and investor protection role. Here, development role which SEBI plays, it is not that like other regulator as such. SEBI is market neutral. SEBI do not provide any or set up any infrastructure for settlement payment or just like or set up any financing agencies. It is totally, as far as the entities which operate, whether stock exchange, clearing corporation, depositories, they are set up by independent agencies. Only role which SEBI plays is facilitating the reforms and development and nudging the market players to go for changes which will bring transparency, which will address conflict of interest, which will make the Indian market where the investors will have more confidence, and the market should be deep, and it should have an increasing liquidity. And therefore, with that mission, the SEBI embarked on the mission of reforming the market. As I've given the background of the economic survey, I will here deal with certain system which was earlier prevalent and how SEBI brought in the reforms in the market. And I've taken up a few examples. These are things which I seeks to deal in today's presentation. And I'm not dealing with the enforcement and other activities or the investor grievance activities and other things. That is also part of investor protection. So I'm mainly conferring that my topic mainly is to show that the development itself may lead to, in some cases, improving the system, which in turn helps in the investor protection. And on the contrary, on the other hand, even the regulations also leads to the development of the market. That is my experience, which because I've been working in regulatory bodies since '92, and I've taken a few examples to subscribe to that view. As you may be knowing, earlier, India had an open outcry system. Even in the world, it was prevalent. And India was one of the first countries which embarked on electronic trading. And therefore, the government and financial institutions and they took initiative to set up a pan-India stock exchange. Pan-India stock exchange, which was to be that is the National Stock Exchange in 1994. And therefore, SEBI made a great push for the exchanges. At that time also, there were regional stock exchanges, which were in about 23 exchanges. And in Bombay, there was a Bombay Stock Exchange. And with NSE coming in the pictures, it became easier for SEBI to push the reforms, because right from the beginning, the NSE mission was to reach pan-India, and that was possible only through the electronic trading. That is one of the things. Actually, through the electronic trading, they brought a lot of transparency in the market. And earlier, the price and order, especially top 10, or which is shown, it was only shown to the brokers only. And the investors, they did not have any access to that one. And there was a system prevalent known as a gala. Actually, if there is any trade which has been executed in the floor, so broker may be charging that may be practice or may not be. Just there was a scope that while selling a script, he may take up that he has sold at the price, at the lowest price, so that the purchaser, the seller, do not get the good price, because in the market, the different pricing in the day, so he may say his stock was sold at the price which may not be the price, and the difference, we call it gala, may be pocketed by him. Similarly, purchasing also, he may say I purchased at the price which is maybe higher, even though in the day there are because only in the newspaper they used to show the average price, and from there it was very difficult to make out that what price the script was sold by the broker. And there was one more thing. There was the practice means the existence of physical securities. What used to happen, if anyone he could buy a securities from the stock exchange, there was a system of what we call it for selling and buying. There was a transfer deed with the securities, and with the blank transfer deed they used to deliver in the market, and therefore given to the broker. Then he gives to the counterparty broker, and after that the purchaser, he used to take, after purchasing, then lodge with the company. The whole cycle used to take average 3 months. And therefore the settlement cycle was also big, because even the Bombay Stock Exchange had a clearing house where only mainly at that time about only 100 securities were settled through that clearing houses. And for others, it was for the counterparty to settle. And therefore, what SEBI did, SEBI, in consultation of the government, an ordinance was issued which enabled a framework for dematerialization of securities. What initially SEBI did, SEBI issued instruction to the stock exchanges at the first stage. If any securities traded in the exchange between the QIBs like SBI or mutual fund or an insurance company, that has to be in a dematerialized form. And for that, no, some 100 securities were identified. After that, that security, that gradually that came to be increased. One thing I wanted to say that at that time, even today, India has one of the largest listed companies. At that time, about 8,000 companies were listed. And therefore, gradually, so that was a humongous task to increase the corpus of the securities to be brought under dematerializations. So gradually what happened then from QIB, then it was made for other segments slowly, and especially for retail also. And then the stocks distributed in a dematerialized form was gradually increased. Now 99% of securities are dematerialized and trading takes place in demat form. Even the Companies Act was changed to make it mandatory earlier in 2000 for making any company which issues security in the IPO in excess of 10 crore, they have to issue in a dematerialized form. So that is the push was given. Now all securities are issued in a demat form. That is mandatory and traded in the demat form. Both these things has increased the efficiency of the market. And another reform which was brought, actually, the NSE was the first exchange which was demutualized, which was not owned by the brokers. And other exchanges, which were, I stated that there were at the time 23 exchanges, and BSE, they were all set up by the brokers. And the BSE was subsequently demutualized. And with the competition, we have seen that other exchanges, they died their natural death because BSE and NSE, they spread all over nook and corner of India, avoiding the need of this existence of the regional stock exchanges. And there was, as I said, because earlier there was no clearing corporation as such, only internal department of BSE was acting as a clearing house. And secondly, due to physical securities and all, there was a concept known as a accounting period settlement. The security is to be traded for 15 days, then after 15 days was for settlement. And that was a very tedious and long cycle. And therefore, the liquidity was one of the concern. Here, suppose if you sell, you do not get money right now. Now everything has changed. Then gradually SEBI embarked on rolling settlement. And that was initiated in 2005. The account period settlement was done away with, and rolling period settlement was initiated in 2001. Initially T+1, then in 2002, T+3, and now 2003, T+2. And this year, we have issued a circular, and where the exchanges, they have been asked to embark on T+1. So we are seeing how this T+1 is ushered in. As you know, any reform, those reforms which I have spoken, dematerialization and all reducing of settlement cycles, electronic trading, all were opposed by the brokers and other entities. And similarly, and as one of the things which SEBI wanted to have the system enhance the integrity of the market, and that was possible only through the clearing corporations, which engages in innovations of the trade and act as a counterparty to each trade. And this is I have taken up one more example. This is a recent example to show that how the regulatory process of development and regulations reinforces each other. In India, the brokers they can act in a dual capacity. One is that they act as a broker. They can do also proprietary trading. And then brokers has also been allowed to become depository participants. And others are also there, just like banks, custodians, they are DPs. Actually, in some cases, we saw that some brokers, when they act in a dual capacity, what they do, the securities of the brokers, the securities of the client, so what they do, because for any transaction in the securities, the client, they authorize broker. One is for selling and one is to use those securities as a purpose of margin. And in some cases, what happens, there is when they in the market after selling or purchasing, in some cases the broker or the client may again leave it to be held in the pooling account of the broker instead of immediately transferring to their own account. And we have seen in such cases some brokers, they use the securities of the broker of the client for their own purposes or from other client. And therefore we wanted to stop this practice. And there was 3 options was available. One was that the broker should not be allowed to act as a proprietary trading also. It should be separated. That means for broking, he should have one license. He wants to do as a proprietary trading, he should have a separate. The other option was that that broker should not be allowed to act as in 2 capacity, as a broker and also as a depository participant. And the third option was here for any trade in the exchange, there should be mandatory to appoint a custodian. And we found that that will make it costly. Actually, the system which SEBI here follows is that we have a very consultative process. We have committees for each segment. Just like for primary market segment, we have a committee. Then we have a committee for secondary market. We have a committee for derivatives. We have a committee for players, and which consists of here the market players, then researchers, then investors' interest. All are there, and any policy changes which is brought in is first discussed. After that, it is brought in after issue of consultation process. Then after that, SEBI implements that one. And therefore, that 3 options which I said was discussed, but we did not go because we saw pros and cons. And the new system was brought in, that is known as a pledge and repledge. Here, the security will remain in the demat account, and it will be given to his broker. The broker in turn will give to the trading and clearing member. He will repledge. And therefore, only when the trade is executed, that security will, when the trade is matched and executed and it is for settlement, that will move only for the purpose of settlement from the account of the client. And this system has brought actually 2 things. One is upfront margin, and this brought a lot of confidence in the investors. They were knowing their security and other, this will not be misused. And secondly, this also help the broker, because this system help the broker and also both the trading member and clearing member to act in a manner which smoothen this whole the process. And if you see during after this system which was brought in, and other changes which I brought in, the number of demat account has increased, which is about now more than 7.5 crores and all. And as far as the portfolio, as far as the folio of mutual funds, it is about 12 point some crore. And another thing which SEBI and the regulator, which SEBI wanted to do, was to deepen the market and channelize the saving of the investors to the capital market. During that time, what we have seen, actually, the people or the investor, they did not have a good avenues to invest, and they have been investing mostly on gold or real estate. Or in India, there was the bane of many, which we will call unauthorized collective investment schemes. And you might have heard the cases of, this many cases are there where they pull capital from all the nook and corner money without registrations, without anything, some return. And therefore, one of the things was to make the regulated mutual fund to reach all nook and corner of the country, so that the people have some alternate investment avenues other than the banks and insurance companies. And in 1993, before that, there was mainly one Unit Trust of India, which was set up by the Government of India under the Act. And then there were others, just like Canara Bank or SBI, which they started as a mutual fund as a part of the banking activities under the guidelines of SEBI. When SEBI came in 92, they came out with regulations which allowed both public and private sector to raise capital from the retail public and channelize the money and invest in the securities market. And the structure which we brought in is very transparent system, where India is one of the country where you can see the whole portfolio where the mutual funds are invested. Actually, in case of debt securities, the whole portfolio is required to be disclosed fortnightly. And in case of equity, it is monthly. You will find in the website of each mutual fund and also MFIN. Similarly, there is a transparency on the how much money or expenses which a mutual fund can charge. And one of the other things which we do not allow mutual fund to leverage on the monies of the retail investors. They are not allowed to borrow, nor they are allowed to lend. They can borrow only for limited purpose for meeting the requirement of redemption. And one of the important thing is that we have seen in, especially in money market funds in USA and others, there is a concept of a constant NAV. And in during 2008-9, we have seen the instance of breaking the buck. But in India, we do not allow any assured return scheme or constant mutual fund with the constant NAV, but all are variable NAV. And NAV is declared daily, and depending on that, they can redeem or invest, and depending on the NAV price. And there is a timing is there for each of them, debt and equity the hour is given, whether they will get the NAV of today or yesterday. And if you see that figure, which has, this is a figure, no, this gradually the mutual fund penetration has increased. And in a rupee term, it is about 38 lakh crores. And one of the things earlier we have seen the gradually, there is a one scheme which we call it systematic investment plan. And every month, about 11,000 crore is the mutual fund industry they get from this. And we have seen gradually, earlier, the FPI was the dominant player. And it is in a country, it is necessary that there is enough players and the market is deep enough, and exit of any entities do not disrupt the market. And there is a very, there should be any high liquidity. Mutual fund and other players, so they are playing a role which is in channelizing the money. In two ways, they are helping. One is the investors have a avenue. Earlier, they were falling prey to some investment avenues like CIS and unlisted entities. Even though still they may be there, but gradually we have seen more and more people, they are having faith on the mutual fund. Even EPFO and other pension fund, insurance company, all are investing in the securities market. And the next thing which is I'm going to cover is on the raising of capital by the corporates, both equity and debt. And this is also one of the example I've taken away, the recent example. Actually, there are a corporate that they can raise capital. One is with a track record and other is without a track record. Track record means you need to have a dividend, this thing, paying record. Company has paid dividend, or has a tangible asset, or has an operating profit, net worth and all. And other is that if they don't have a dividend paying track record, then they can have through book building process, where at least 75% offer is to the qualified institutional buyers. As you know, in the world over, there is a lot of competitions on attracting good company in their exchanges and all. And there was one of the issue whether Indian capital market has a enough depth to raise capital if it is just like 15,000 crore worth or what. Secondly, whether the loss-making company can raise capital, and especially without track record and all, which they come. And we have graduation that all type of companies are now raising capital because the market has become so deep. And it is one of the avenues they can raise from India itself. And here I am giving example of some companies which have raised IPOs, which are without track record. And
Sir, we may have to request you to maybe speeden up.
Okay. This is one example I wanted to give you. After this, there were some issues were there because we constantly review, and after that, some changes we brought in our regulations here, and you will find most of the companies except two companies. There was an issue regarding valuations. Their value fell after the IPOs and all. And I'm skipping that superior voting right because it's a time. And then some we brought some changes to the this old rule and the new rule. and it is being debated in the market. Okay. Similarly, we have also changed our guidelines for professional allotment. I wanted to share one of the, in Bloomberg Quint, there is one article, SEBI reforms on professional allotment, both facilitative and protective. What I wanted to say, when we bring regulation, it is for both. It is, we play both the roles. And similarly for raising capital through the bond market. The bond market, earlier, it was totally opaque market, and where the OTC market for raising capital and also for trading. So this initiative was taken by SEBI, and SEBI, what it did, they said now all issues, particularly in the private placement market, should be through electronic book provider, EBP mechanism. And here this market has played a greater role. And this was also opposed because by the issuer and both arranger and all. Gradually, we have seen a large number of capital has been raised through this platform. You will see that the amount of capital raised in 2018, 19, and 1920, the amount through this mechanism. And now the debt market is playing a very, bond market is playing role, and about 60% of domestic capital rate constitutes 60% of GDP. Similarly, for trading, there is one platform which SEBI took initiative, that is for request for quote, because otherwise it was traded in the other exchanges. Similarly, for infrastructure financing, a new instrument was brought, that is a business trust. And this also, from in the 3 years, it has helped in raising this much of capital, like even how many capital. And this new framework, it was totally initiative was taken by SEBI on this. Similarly, in 2011, SEBI initiated reform process for alternative investment fund. And there were 3 categories of fund, and consultation paper issued and this thing. And now the AIF, they are playing a role in greater role in channelizing money from the high net worth individuals, and they are investing in a startup and unlisted space, right from the seed capital to the growth and other things. And this is the amount of capital they have raised and channelized. And in the year 2021, there was deal value of about 77 billion and exit of about 43 billion. And secondly, in India is one of the country, and there are about where the startup ecosystem is become more vibrant with participation of this AIF and all. And I wanted to give some conclusion. Said that the mandate of development regulations do not necessarily lead to conflict. Development regulations role, they on the contrary reinforce each other. And development leads to investor protection, and regulations leads to the development of the market. Here, all the examples I've given, the shortening of trading period or clearing corporations. This helps ultimately dematerializations. They have also helped investor protection. And in the IPOs earlier, there used to be huge investment by this retail investor participations. And then in some cases, where the investors were not getting allotment, they were the refund used to take long time. That what SEBI did, SEBI came out with a new thing which we call it ASBA. The applications supported by blocked amount. The money remains blocked in the his bank account. The moment it is allotted, then only the money goes out of that. So issue of refund and other thing was taken care of. And one of the things which I am when the development initiative is taken by the regulator, the market depends faster because there may be some vested interests who may not like that reform to go on. So we cannot leave it development to the market alone. And with this, I wanted to thank LSC and NISM for giving me opportunity to speak. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking us through the whole session, starting from the intuition towards regulation and the current status. A couple of questions we have received. I would like to remind the participants again that in case you have some questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. We are happy to take your questions and then put it across to the different speakers assembled here. So with that gentle reminder, we have a couple of questions already in here, sir. This is a question from, I think, Dr. Kevin. How does SEBI decide which reforms to pursue?
Yes.
And he continues to ask, that is, how do you really pick up your area of focus? That is which area to reform, and how do you get to choose which one to pursue? So since you have limited resources, how do you really do this? Yeah.
The resources may be limited, but what we do, as I said, we are the regulator. We are in constant touch with the industry and the investors. And we have various committees and all. And we also regularly meet the all the constituent, whether it is a FPI or whether it is a the FICCI chamber and all, or whether it is the investors or intermediaries. So they, if the issuer and all, they may say we are facing constraint in issuing the securities and the timeline is much more and this risk is all there, then we look for the many avenues and all. One more example we will give you. There was also demand, as you know, globally there is a competitions and DVR, differential voting right. And in some cases we have seen there are some companies like Alibaba and all, no, they were not able to this thing allowed in Hong Kong. Then they went to USA and on for listing. So here also the similar demand came. But as we have a mandate for investor protection, also we came out also with our regulations known as a superior voting rights. But ours is very guarded, where the superior voting rights is given, then there is a higher level of a corporate governance. And there is also, the period is there, it is only for 5 years after that. Then there is a court tail provisions. In a sense, even if they have a superior voting rights, it cannot be used when there is a appointment of audit committees or independent directors. And second thing is that in such cases, all members should be independent. That is one of the example was giving. Other thing is that in India, that market is vibrant, and we have a very fourth state that is a press, and we have channels, no, CNB, all channels, no, they are always taking up the issues, and then we get feedback from all places. And recently, you know, there was some consultation paper we have issued for retail algo. That was also pursuant to some newspaper and all, money market. There is one of the good journalists, he raised the issues, this need to be regulated. So we don't go jump on that one. So we consult the industry and all. After that, we see consultation paper. And there is both the way, views will be both the ways. And we will take a view after we have received. This is one.
Yeah. So there's a follow-up question on the development and regulation issue, how does SEBI take into account the impact of financial markets on non-financial market participants? That is, people who do not directly participate in the market, but they may also be still affected by what happens in the market. So how do you really take care of?
This is actually one of the thing of no, this what you call normally there's a term now we use in the uh, when we bring in any issues, whether for bond market or this, we see the whole pictures. There's a loan market, bond market, and also the issue is that, as you know, the two ways it may be affected. One is increasing efficiency and competition. If the issuer are thrown open and they have avenues to raise capital both from the loan market, bond market, or through ECB and all, so their choices increases. In a way, it helps in. And second thing, maybe here the system which we try to make is so that if there is any run or whatever in the, it do not percolate into the, do not affect the real estate. So we have a system and procedures where we make it more robust and other thing, so that if there is any incident, any failure or whatever, it do not affect the real economy as such. And for each, we have a risk containment measures, surveillance and other things are there. We try to have a, as I said, we have a especially settlement guarantee fund, so that, and we have seen in India so far, we have not faced any settlement failures so much. And there is also restrictions, sectoral and other restrictions, so that it do not percolate to other entities when in case of any failure. And we have also in India, just like in other countries, all regulators, there is a inter-regulatory mechanisms are there. So, and both the Reserve Bank of India, SEBI, IIT and other, all are part of that one. So we see that if there is anything which should not percolate, and as you know, after the financial crisis, and stability is also one of the issues which is taken into consideration.
One more final question from Dr. Sen. In overall terms, how would you assess the success of all these measures to liberalize the financial markets? Are there any gaps that still remain? What is your view, sir?
Here, no, everything is, as you know, always there is a scope for the market for improvement, especially because the global capital market has become very competitive. And the investors and the issuer now, even though India has some capital account, this control for investment, but still gradually that is being, even the Indian are exposed to the investing outside. So real, that will be known if the market is totally open, then we can say how much depth and the India's markets, that will be really known. But still, we are the system and procedure which we are making. Actually, we are part of the global regulators. So all checks and balances are brought in. One thing which we try to avoid is this regulatory arbitrage. We don't allow, and we also do not fall in the race. And secondly, as a regulator, we try to have a balance both between the market and the investor protection. And other thing which is upper in mind, that there should not be any regulatory capture. So, and we take signals from everyone so that we are alive to the situation.
Thank you very much, sir, for providing an excellent summary of more than 3 decades of capital market reforms and taking us all through the latest initiatives also. With this, we come to the end of the first session.